Welcome to the affiliate interview series by StatsDrone. Today's guest is Michael Shackleford from Wizard of Odds. Let's get to it. Welcome to the affiliate interview series. I got a special guest with me, Michael Shackleford from Wizard of Odds. And this is a special guest for me because I've been in the online gambling space for over 20 years. The very first site that I ever went to was literally Wizard of Odds. I learned everything I knew about gambling at the time: blackjack, video poker strategies, learning how to make money from casinos of things I shouldn't have been doing. But it's still to this day for me a very special site, and I have fond memories of it. So I'll pass it over to you, Mike, and just want to let you give yourself a chance to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction. That was a good beginning. And I have been in this space since I've developed my site in 97, and I started to write about internet gambling in 99. So I would like to think that I was one of the very first people to write about internet gambling and to be, I would like to think, an advocate of that business.
Okay. Then I'm curious to know if you've also had a lot of feedback from people like me that have said, hey, I've used your site from day one. And I mean, I know for a fact I'm not the only one.
If I may toot my own horn, I get compliments a lot. Much like what you said, Mike, I've been using your site for 20 years and it's, I really trust it. And I actually get more compliments from people that work for casinos than players, even though the site was meant as a tool for players.
So I'm guessing that you still get a lot of industry people that come and, they're kind of looking to learn more about the industry. I mean, I think it goes without saying that if you're going to work in any aspect of the industry, whether it's land-based or online, it kind of helps to, kind of know what you're getting into and, maybe not be a professional gambler, but know some of the inner workings of how games are.
Absolutely. I think anybody who is in the casino gaming business, whether it be online or traditional, should understand the basics of the rules of their games and how rule changes affect things and the math of them. And much of them go right to my site for that information. And I'm very proud of that.
Now, a kind of a curveball question. Have you ever thought about making your own games, or maybe do you do consulting for casinos and kind of like work alongside them and helping come up with new games and game ideas and game development?
Oh, that's a major part of my day is, first of all, yes, I have invented some of my own games. It's a very tough business and it's not something that I spend a great deal of time on. In fact, but just this morning I was speaking with somebody about a new Baccarat variant I have been puttering around with. But I do spend quite a bit of my time consulting for casinos and software developers, anybody looking to create or improve upon existing games.
Okay. So given that, we're still kind of on the same topic of, all the different types of games, are you yourself a gambler, or are there certain games that you like to play, or are you the kind of person that says, you know how it works, when it doesn't work in your favor, and you basically take a step aside?
I don't do as much gambling as I used to. I moved to Las Vegas in 2001. And at first, I was pretty active out there gambling as a professional gambler, but my name got passed around as somebody who is not a profitable player. So I don't spend as much, I hardly spend any time actually gambling anymore. And what was the second part of your question?
It was just kind of more like,
Oh, I think you asked, what do I enjoy playing?
yeah.
Yeah, if I'm, say, have a friend in town and he or she wants to gamble, my favorite game is Pai Gow Tiles, which unfortunately you never see in online casinos. And barring that, blackjack is always good, and Ultimate Texas Hold'em. In other words, games that require an advanced level of skill.
Yeah. There's something I heard recently. I was at one of the ICE conferences, and I talked to someone where their company focuses on bonus abuse and actually helping operators block it.
Hmm.
And that person, Osric from Greco, he told me that some of the smartest people or the sharpest people that are successful in the world of gambling today have actually come from a background of maybe not always abuse, but professional gamblers. And I think it kind of makes sense where, I mean, who else would know the games inside out better than a professional gambler?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I um, was very involved in bonus playing in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it was just paradise back then. There were virtually no restrictions, and casinos didn't even know about bonus abuse. There were so few people doing it. And it's still very doable to this day. People make livings at it, and but it's just a lot tougher, a lot more terms and conditions to get through, and a lot more play you have to put through. But I happily advise people on my websites how to beat the current types of bonuses. Right now, it's the slot bonuses that are the most generous for the player, and um, and as for the other side, um, if somebody asks me, which is not very often, I will explain what is the behavior of a bonus abuser. It's exactly the behavior that I tell players they should have. So yes, I admit it. I play both sides. As my philosophy is, I'm all in favor of truthful information, and I put it out there and let the chips fall where they may.
I still believe that there are a lot of online casinos that they're not really fully on top of bonus abuse. And I think their philosophy or their kind of maybe lack of experience comes from the mindset of going, well, these are the wagering requirements of a slots game and a slots bonus. So therefore, when you do the math, it ends up being in the negative. So how can someone abuse it? But I believe there are probably two ways of proving that you can still abuse it. And I think it goes without saying, the fact that these communities still exist and they're actually kind of growing and getting bigger. I mean, when we see large gaming groups go out of business, I believe that bonus abuse is still one of them. So, what would you say to all these owners and affiliate managers and casino managers that are kind of oblivious to this? And how would you advise them on on learning how this actually works?
I could talk about this all day, but almost any bonus is vulnerable to abuse. And I think that the way casinos look at it as in terms of the way a typical player would play, and they see the player giving them much more than they give back, which is true of the typical player. But the bonus players is going to hit hard at the very beginning under most bonus rules and shoot for the moon or go bust trying. And if he reaches the moon, then you'll go through the play requirements. But the bonus player should have the mentality of I don't want to do the play requirements. I want to bust out before I have to play them or win so much that that I can afford to play through the bonus requirement. And I know that for casinos it's a big problem is I invested a lot of money in a small casino group, and this was a group that was owned by affiliates and players that understood bonus abuse, and we would think we could guard against it, but we got hammered hard by bonus players. And it's my understanding that it was one of the major reasons that we went out of business, but not the only one.
That's really interesting. And I think you've explained it well that I mean, the effect of wagering drops significantly when you play a do or die style where you're betting so large that you lose very quickly, but once you lose quickly, you've basically minimized your wagering. And I try explaining this to some people, but they don't really seem to understand it. And maybe if they hear it from you first, maybe they'll be like, well, that's the truth. They might not listen to me, but it's kind of like at some point you have data to at least analyze. If you're not
Mm-hmm,
going to listen to what you're saying, at least look at the data and run your math, and it kind of it you can't help but see the
mm-hmm,
actual what's truly happening.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
And so, given that I think you've got more experience on the casino side, but I mean, you must have looked at every other aspect of gambling, like maybe not necessarily lottery and bingo, where I hear bingo, there's ways of having advantage play, but with poker and sports betting, I mean, there are different angles of professional betting, and I think they're very different. So, have you spent much time on either?
I've spent quite a bit of emphasis on sports betting. I've looked at the NFL in a lot of depth, as well as to some degree basketball um, and Major League Baseball and college football. And that was a big emphasis of mine, I would say, through the late 2010s, early 2020s. Um, and a live poker is one of the weakest areas of mine when it comes to live gambling. So I mostly just leave that alone. And you mentioned bingo. Bingo can be an advantage play here in Las Vegas, but a small one. And I haven't looked at it too much online.
And for bingo, like in the land-based settings, I mean, are we talking like comp points or is it just more than that?
With here in Las Vegas, bingo is actually pretty complicated where there's all different kinds of cards you can buy and packs and it's side bets you can make. And sometimes at certain sessions at certain casinos, a certain type of card can have a player advantage. For example, I live close to the Red Rock Casino, and it used to be that they put out $3,000 guaranteed in their 9 o'clock session. And there was a particular kind of card that mainly only went to this $3,000 game. And I basically found it to be an advantage play. And I bought hundreds and hundreds of cards and won almost every single session. And it didn't take them that long to figure out that I knew something. And they limited me to the number of cards I can buy. And that was enough to make me quit playing there.
Yeah. Well, I guess it goes without saying. I mean, anyone that sees you playing their games is should be kind of have their guard up.
Yeah, and I would say that about any advantage player, that if I ran a casino and I saw a known advantage player in there and I didn't understand why they were in there, I would watch them very carefully to figure it out.
Yeah. So where did the name Wizard of Odds come from?
So the original name of my website was just called Mike's Gambling Page. And one day, when I still had a normal job, I was reading a newspaper and it mentioned the death of Donald Angelini, who was a big Chicago gangster. And he went by the moniker the Wizard of Odds because he was involved in illegal bookmaking. And I thought, that would be a good name for my website. And now that he's dead, he's not going to come after me for it. So, so I went online to try to buy the domain, and wizardofodds.com was taken, but I did buy thewizardofodds.com, which was readily available. And I tried to buy just wizardofodds.com, which I finally did after the owner who was just parking on it sold it to me for $5,000. And so, yeah, basically, I owe Donald Angelini credit for that name, but it was also the name of a game show that starred Alex Trebek before he ever did Jeopardy. So I can't take credit for being the one to think of it.
Yeah, that's much better than I think Mike's gambling page.
Yeah, I agree.
It still probably would have stood the test of time, but it's. I think when we hear Wizard of Odds, it kind of implies that there's going to be odds involved, and you're going to learn about house edge and all the different games you can play, and whether you want to take advantage of it or just basically learn the basics.
Thanks. That's what I was trying to convey with that title.
Well, thanks very much for jumping on this podcast. I want to give people an opportunity. How can they find you, especially for all those in the industry that work in land-based or online gambling that want to get a hold of you, especially for your consulting?
Well, thanks for asking. I don't want to just throw my email out there, but if you go to wizardofodds.com and click contact and then say, I'm trying to reach the wizard or something like that, then it'll get to me. Please don't, players don't bother me with gambling questions. That's what my forum is for, wizardofvegas.com. And if you sign up there and send me a private message, I will get that too. But but for the general public, please respect my time, and I can't be the personal gambling free tutor to the whole world.
Yeah, so I guess we'll keep it so that they should go to the forum. We'll send links in the show notes for that, and yeah, I can imagine with your experience, I'm sure players like to ask you questions over and over again, and it's best in a forum where when you answer it for that one person, you're going to answer it for hundreds.
Absolutely. That's why I made the forum.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, John. Thank you for the interview.